G'day guys, it's Ryan here. I'm here with Stephen.
Hey guys.
And welcome to the 5th episode of the Macrocosm podcast. Today we're going to discuss and review both Sherlock Holmes and Sherlock Holmes: A Game of Shadows. But I think this time we're both going to try and not stick to the plot so strictly as we have the last time. So, so let's get into it. Do a little review, a brief description of both the movies. Start off with the first one. It was released in 2009. Detective Sherlock Holmes and his Stewart partner, Watson. Stewart means loyal, hardworking. I had to look that up just so you know. Engage in a battle of wits and brawn with a nemesis whose plot is a threat to all of England. And pretty similar description on the second one. So we got Detective Sherlock Holmes is on the trail of a criminal mastermind, Professor Moriarty, who is carrying out a string of random crimes across Europe. So we got some similar characters in both of them. Obviously, we got Robert Downey Jr. as Sherlock Holmes, got Jude Law as Dr. John Watson, Rachel McAdams as Irene Adler, and I mean a funny character that doesn't show up too much, but I'm going to introduce him anyway, is Inspector Lestrade, who's played by Eddie Marsan. I think he's quite funny. Now, the main antagonist, the bad guy of the first one, is Mark Strong, and he's Lord Henry Blackwood, which is a nice sounding name. Just saying that, Lord Henry Blackwood, it just rolls off the tongue. I like it.
Yeah, it's good.
And then in the second one, we've got Jared Harris as Professor James Moriarty. Yeah. So let's get into it, Stephen. What do you think?
Yeah, so like with the first one, so like straight away, I don't know, they're so good, these movies. I don't know.
Yeah, I know, they're just so fun, aren't they?
But like at the start, there's like the carriage goes past and stuff, and there's a little action scene there. Like it sort of shows off his fighting, but not like to a great extent. And later on, they show it again. And then so they do a thing where you can like hear his thoughts, and he's like telling you what he's going to do. Like, you know, like
his like slow-mo breakdown.
Yeah, slow-mo breakdown. And then afterwards, it all goes in like full speed, and they do it all. And you see it, like, it's so good. And
it's, him like telling you exactly what he's about to perform, exactly like to the T. And then he carries it out precisely.
So with that, at the end of his description is like, injuries will be this, that, and he's like, full faculty recovery, not likely.
That
was so good.
And then a bit later, is that where he does the he's in like, you know, bare knuckle boxing or whatever, and at the end of it he does the same thing where he goes the breakdown, and he lists the injuries, and then he's like, ability to spit on the back of one's head neutralized. Which is quite funny.
I got
as
that
well.
written down. I got like, he's like, physical recovery 6 weeks, mental recovery 6 months.
Was that the first or the second one?
That's in the first one.
Yeah, no, all right, cool.
Second one's a bit different. They don't seem to do that as much. The first action scene, he doesn't say anything. It just happens. They do the slow motion thing, but he doesn't say anything.
I was about to say, in the second movie, they definitely did a lot of like slow-mo action scenes, not necessarily like they did a couple of the whole like him breaking it down, like especially one where he gets interrupted, which is quite funny.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, that was hilarious. We'll get to that later, but yeah. No, but like they did a lot more, I felt, in the second one of like especially the battle scene where they're running through the woods and all the bullets going past, the cannons, the gunshots. Same thing with when they're on the train as well. But we'll get into that. So like towards the start there, it's not really important, but I thought it was really cool. The bad guy's standing there, and Watson's like about to grab him or go up to him, and then Sherlock grabs him and says stop, because there's a little thin bit of glass there and about to stab him. And then Watson's like, how'd you see that? And Sherlock's like, because I was looking for it. And that's another thing, just showing how observant he is.
Extremely observant, to a fault.
That's right. And I thought that was pretty. That was a good opening scene.
It is. It's like because that kind of show, he is so observant when it comes to things like that. but he's so unobservant when it comes to, I don't know, meeting Watson and his future wife.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
And like, especially when like he does his bloody breakdown, noticing all the little things about her while they go out to dinner.
She asked for it.
Yeah, exactly. She asked for it and she got it. But he gets something a little wrong, like maybe that they had a divorce, but what happened was that her ex-husband had died in the war.
Yeah.
And then she throws a drink in his face, and then so Watson and her leave, and he's just sitting there carrying on. He hasn't even wiped the wine off his face, and he's just sitting there, carries on eating his dinner. Like
that acting that acting was so good because, like,
for an autistic person, absolutely.
No, but like because I was going to say because he's sitting there like how do you explain it?
I genuinely think he's just confused. He's shocked. He's like, huh? Why would she do that? He doesn't comprehend. He's completely disconnected from human emotion.
Yeah.
Except for his own. That's how I see it anyway.
Yeah, like you said, he looked like he's stunned and it's like I thought he looked like he was sort of upset but pretending that nothing had happened. Like he's carrying on.
You definitely could see it like that.
He's just eating and carrying on like he doesn't do it properly. Like do you know what I mean?
Like I definitely don't think there's no way in his mind he thinks he did anything wrong.
No, that's right.
That's where I'm more mean. He was shocked at the response from her when he said nothing but words. Like, and he's just so oblivious to me anyway. It seemed like he was just like, shocked. Okay. He didn't even wipe. The fact he didn't wipe it off of his face, the fact he didn't stand up and try to apologize, all those things go towards he doesn't know how to emotionally respond.
Yeah. So you're right. Yeah. He didn't realize that he upset her. But he was sort of upset at the fact that she threw water in his face, and he's like, "But why?" And he's sort of just pretending nothing happened,
Because he obviously cared a lot. Because he got there he got there early, to the dinner. He showed up. That's not. I'm guessing for something. If he doesn't want to do it, he's not doing it. You know what I mean? And just a quick note on that, the scene before the bare knuckle brawling where he does that quick breakdown. Ability to. Was it the ability to spit on someone's? That scene there. I love it where. So he just does the slow-mo breakdown. Then after that, just, he bloody does it just perfectly in sequence. And in the background, you hear something. And this made me, I laughed, man, so hard. Yeah. There's just someone in the background, because obviously it's a group of people betting on these fights. They're invested in it. And someone in the background goes, "Where'd that come from?" As soon as he bloody knocks that dude out, I thought that was hysterical because you would feel like you were being bloody ripped off. Like he's acting all weak, getting broken down and punched. So then people bet more that he's going to lose. So therefore his win is higher. I thought that was good.
Like you said, I had forgotten that at the start of that fight, he was just fighting, pretending to lose, like.
He was being pretty weak.
And then he saw the girl's handkerchief. It was Irene's, I think. Irene Adler's.
Yeah, Irene Adler. Yeah.
And then that's what kicked him to go, I'm going to end this now, so kick his ass. Because initially he was probably just going to throw the fight. I don't know. But that's cool.
I reckon it would be just to get some more money.
Yeah. And then as soon as she was involved, he's like, oh, that's it. I got to, And then that guy, like you said, where'd that come from?
Just out of nowhere. It's I guess because we saw the breakdown, so we
the way they filmed the fight. The way they filmed the fights is like you feel the punches. Like it's so good. It's so well done. I don't know, the cuts and everything. You can see what's going on even when it's at full speed, not slow mo. You can still see what's going on. It's really cool. So there's a scene there where they go to wherever Sherlock lives. Was it 120 something Baker Street? So it is. Well, anyway,
I didn't write down the address. I'll be honest.
I thought it was so good when he's been Watson comes over and Sherlock's been hiding in his room for like 2 weeks, like on his own. And he's been
and he's all. But is that where he walks in? He can't find him.
No, that's in the second movie.
Oh, geez. Oh, no, I've just already muddled up the two. Continue. Sorry.
I thought it was such a good job, because Watson pulls the blinds open, and Sherlock cowers away like a vampire, burns. Because because he obviously hadn't seen the sunlight for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, oh, he's like, oh, be gentle with me, Watson. Be gentle.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is funny.
and it's showing like how Sherlock just likes to, he just does whatever he wants, and like he just makes shit, experiments, like making a silencer for a gun that doesn't work. And then it's so funny.
Testing on the dog.
Yeah, the dog throughout the movie, that's like such an ongoing thing. This poor fucking dog.
No shit. Don't let him own an animal.
and straight away, so like in the first movie, Watson's there. Watson's like, I think it was the maid. What's her name?
Miss. I've got it right. I'll give me 3 seconds.
Start with a H or something.
Miss Hudson, thank you.
Miss Hudson, yeah. So she's like, oh, and he's killed the dog again. And then Sherlock's like, no, I'm just testing a new anesthetic I developed. This is so funny.
A new aesthetic, yeah.
Anesthetic, yeah.
I like, so, you know, they thought they had killed Blackwood. They thought that Watson had pronounced him dead.
Oh, that's right.
And they go back. And then they go back and they dig up the body, and the casket, it takes them like 10 men to lift this casket out because it's so fucking heavy. Like, oh God, he's like the devil. And then they rip it open, and it's clearly not him in there.
Yeah, someone else.
I like it that I like the part where, what's his name? Inspector Lestrade. He goes, oh, that's not Blackwood. And Sherlock, with a look of like, the look on his face is, holy crap, you're retarded. He goes, well, now we have a firm grasp of the obvious. And then moves on. I thought that just putting him down, even though he's a good guy, like they're like, you know, they kind of understand each other. They're like, Lestrade helps them out, you know, I mean, obviously not a little bit later, but it still helps him out. He's on their side. So, and he still puts him down because he's just a smart ass, isn't he, all the way through.
Yeah, because like just before
Sherlock's a smartass.
So I remember like you see them hanging the guy, and it's like I'm thinking to myself, well, obviously that's not going to kill him, even before they like dug up the body. But I'm not sure if that was. I thought that because I had seen it before, or what. But that thought came to me when they hung him. I'm like, yeah, nah, that's not going to work.
No, I think also like it must be probably because we do know the outcome. Maybe that's kind of sullied the rewatching of it. It did feel, I mean, there's obviously just throughout them, I noticed this is one of my ending notes that I thought of, like just overall on both of the movies. I felt there was a lot of like cringy like words being said, like a lot of not a lot, sorry, maybe in each movie, maybe a few scenes or whatever. There was one specifically with Blackwood where he's like behind the jail cell, and Sherlock has his back leant up against it, and like he pokes his head out almost, and he's like says something. He's like, "This worries me." Like the words that were chosen, it made me go ugh, like ugh. What I don't know. It turned me off a bit, but also on the opposite end of that, the same thing. No. I don't mean just to make me not like that character. I think it wasn't specifically Lord Blackwood. I think just like some of the things I saw between Sherlock and Watson. There, I don't know. It was cringy. It was like, ugh, that's a bit fucking stupid. Like
what? Like the words were bad choice of words, or
bad choice of words. The fact, or that it didn't fit the scene. Like why was that said? Like those along those lines. I wish I had more examples to come up with right now. Yeah, I'm sure I'll think of some later. I mean, but on the other end of that same note, right?
I just remember.
No, I don't think
creepy.
I don't know. There was more than that.
Didn't worry me that much, but yeah, okay.
On the other end of that same, with saying that same bad thing about the movies, I also found a lot of the scenes extremely interesting, like the words that were chosen. So I'm guessing they tried, they obviously wanted to pick the right words, and because it's a bit old timey, so they're, trying to use bigger and larger words for no fucking reason. But that was very good in most of the scenes. It's just a select few where it was just like, what? It didn't seem right at all.
Because I remember noticing maybe a bit in the second one, like, because they're obviously set in old times, they're talking sort of like old-timey words.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And sometimes they would shorten words like wasn't. They shouldn't do that. They wouldn't have done that back then. They would have been was not.
Yeah, probably not, yeah.
They would have been fancy-ish. but Lestrade's like a bit of a bogan sort of accent, so he wouldn't pronounce it properly. So I guess it depends on what part of London you're from, but in London, just particularly, they would probably pronounce the words properly.
And especially back then when it was the up and coming, only the rich lived there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I noticed that quite a bit. Like bits and pieces, they used to do that. I also like just going back a little bit to the fighting and like his deductive abilities. I thought it was really good in the movie how, like in the intro, they give you a glimpse of both those abilities of being observational and being able to fight. And then later on, they go more in depth into it. So you get like a bigger fight scene and you get like with the glass spike, he noticed that. And then later on, he can read the people in the diner. So he reads what's Mary, Watson's wife. And that's like more in-depth observational. You know what I mean? Like it was good. Yeah. How they built on it.
Definitely.
I think that's a good strategy to build on the powers. They're not really powers, but you know,
we can call them powers. I think we're not saying that he was struck by God and now he has the ability to throw lightning at people. But he has this. He was born with this ability to see patterns in a way that we wouldn't be able to see them.
So I thought that gradual introduction was good. It's good to show people,
And they didn't just jump straight in. I mean, yes, he's cocky, and yes, he pretty much wins at all costs. But he also loses before he wins, like almost every time. Like he gets like put on his ass, and then he stands up and fights. And obviously that first scene where he kind of lost on purpose in the beginning of the fight. But I'm not talking about that. But in general, like especially with the big scenes, like he thought he'd got it right, but he was wrong. He was actually led there on purpose by Moriarty, but he thought he'd figured it out. That's where the bomb is, you know, like he has to get it wrong to then eventually get it right. And I guess that's the point of a movie, isn't it? It's like, he gets it right. Oh shit, he got it wrong. Now fix why he got it wrong.
But if he got it right straight away, then the movie's over. You know, you gotta do that.
It'd be a half-hour TV show, wouldn't it?
And then there's a scene where he's at home in his apartment and Irene, does she walk in or she's there or something? And I thought it was so good showing that, like, because it sort of showed that he's scared of her, but he used to love her and he's scared of her.
Yeah, no, it lets you know that he has feelings for her. Whatever those feelings, he's intimate with her in a way that he's not with anyone else.
Yeah, and I thought the acting of that was pretty good because there's like a bit there where he knocks over the picture frame. So
I was just about to say that, yeah.
So she won't see that he's got a picture of her.
And then she says that she saw it, and he's like, "Oh, just study, just in case they want to take you down, or what? Just in case the cops want to take you down." I thought that was a nice cover up. He's actually just infatuated about her.
And then so there's a scene here that I really like. So after she leaves, you see her get in a carriage. The horse and carriage. And there's a man in there, and you don't see his face. So,
but we know who he is, though.
Well, no, do we? Because I initially thought that guy was Blackwood.
No, it's Moriarty.
But it's Moriarty. I didn't know that until the end. I thought I was thinking, she's working with Blackwood because he's dead, so now he's disguising himself. But you're right because you see.
That's true.
Because you see, he has that gun up his sleeve. But Blackwood, Blackwood didn't have it.
I thought the gun had like a nice looking M stamped onto it. You know what I mean? Like they did back then. Maybe I'm just thinking because I actually watched the movie, but definitely at the end of the first one they mentioned Moriarty.
Yes, I know.
Was he a professor or whatever? Yeah.
And then I've realized, oh no, the guy in the carriage, of course, is Moriarty because
he's pulling the strings.
But Blackwood didn't have the gun up his sleeve. Only the guy in the carriage did. So if it was Blackwood, he would have had a gun up his sleeve, you know? So afterwards, I thought, of course it wasn't him. I had one of those moments. And then while we're at the carriage, right, some homeless guy bumps into the carriage.
Oh,
and you see a man, and you see him, and the man puts the gun at the homeless guy. And I thought,
Sherlock, Freudian slip there.
And that guy was Sherlock, obviously.
Yeah, yep. Now, did you look? I just want to quickly say, just that. Did you, after you watch that scene, it's Sherlock, but it doesn't quite look like him, and then they replay it a little bit later on when he's explaining to Watson, and it really does look like Sherlock. They used someone else to play the first person. I swear, like I've went back over and I'm like, it doesn't look like him. I swear, or they put way more
to do too on purpose. But
that you see his face and like his face structure. So what I think is they put way more. I think they put way more makeup on him the first time, but then when they're showing you that it's him being they don't put as much effort. They make it look like it's not a real moustache. You know what I mean? The nose isn't real or whatever it is. It's like
and so they then when he explains it, you see that he was following Irene, and then along the way he was stealing stuff to use as disguise, and I thought that was so clever. So
and like a deflection as well. Like he has the rice grains too, how he grabs that. That's pretty cool. I do agree with you. It's a nice, it's showing how much forethought he puts into it. Like he's thinking about every opportunity as it's like, as he's going through. It's not just like, oh shit, I need a hammer. Now I'm going to go look for a hammer. He already thought he might need a hammer. He's got it in his pocket.
So why not? Yes, and then he found all the disguise, and then a nice touch when he fell out the window and he got the ash on his face. That was a good dirty him up a bit. That was a good
nice
one
little
too.
touch.
So throughout the movie, I find it like, I guess it's part of the character. It's just so funny how he has a habit of not telling people the plan. Like
yes,
not telling them what he's thinking.
It's so intentional. It's like he wants the reveal. He wants to. He's waiting for them to like say stupid shit. He's like, no, it's not that. And then he keeps carrying on, and then they'll say like, maybe it's this. No, it's not that. And he keeps carrying on without actually telling him the right thing. He does withhold a lot of truth, doesn't he?
Yeah. And I think that's good. It's well done. Like that's what the character would probably do. If you're that smart, you probably would.
Probably, yeah.
Because what else you got to enjoy in life but to make fun of people? And then that's when they have that, when they had that fight with that big guy? I don't know what his name was, but the big muscly dude. It was funny. Because like Sherlock's like, because he's there with
Isn't
Watson.
it, is Dredger?
Yeah, that's right. That's Dredger, the big dude comes over, and that's...
Now, do you know there's a little tidbit there? A little bit of trivia? Do you have a bit of trivia about him?
No.
All right, I've got a little... he accidentally knocked out Robert Downey Jr. in the filming. And like out cold, he was knocked out for like 30 odd seconds, completely blank.
Yeah, I did read that. You're right. That's funny.
Yeah, I thought that was a cool little thing. Like, because Sherlock, Robert Downey Jr. wanted to make sure he did his own, like the stunts. Mild stunts.
Yeah.
He didn't do all of them, obviously, because like jumping out of a window. But
what did he get hit with? Was it the guy's fist or...
No, it was when they were. It was
the hammer thing. Because he swings around that hammer later on at the boatyard.
At the boatyard, I believe it was in that scene. I'm not exactly sure where, but I'm pretty sure they referenced to the boatyard scene.
Because sometimes a lot of actors aren't used to having something else in their hands, like a hammer or something, because that extends your length, your reach.
Exactly.
And if you haven't practiced,
you may as well consider that as an elbow. Like a continuing on part. Yeah.
And if you haven't practiced, you don't know the limit. You don't know where the safe spot is, because your fist's way better than anything. So where your swing will go.
Well, you've lived with them for however many years you've existed.
Right, yeah. So that might have been not enough training.
And that's where they say a master swordsman doesn't consider the sword a tool. They consider it their arm.
An extension.
So like, you're no longer you no longer have the length arm that you have now. You now have one that's 2 meters long or whatever it happens to be. But like you forget that it's a separate entity. It is a part of you, And I can imagine that's with almost every skill set. It's like you no longer see it as an item. I'm pulling the trigger on this gun. It's like no, a smooth motion of we are working together and shoot, or whatever happened, whatever example we're talking about.
Yeah, so they do a real good job of again showing his intelligence, and his bloody accidental discovery of things, because like he's trying to fight the big dude, he can't beat him, so he finds this taser in the building they're in. There's like this taser thing, like a wind-up.
How does he know it's a taser?
Well, I don't know. I think he accidentally discovers it.
Oh, that's right. No, you're right. The first time he accidentally does it. But more my question was, how does he know after accidentally using it, how does he know to recharge it?
Yeah, well, I guess he knows electricity and he just go, that's quite smart.
I guess.
Because we don't know what his knowledge of electricity is.
But they didn't even have fucking lights back then.
No. But anyway, I mean, you can have a giant capacitor. Like, that is feasible to happen to work. I don't think it'd throw you across the room. Well, it might do. Depends how high the voltage.
Well, I guess because they're not really, they haven't been studying it for that long, so maybe it's way overboard. Like, it's not just a cattle prod; it's like a dinosaur prod now. It's
because but it was so funny because first time he zaps the guy, he goes flying, and the second time, like the guy's there trying to he's like, I need a minute, give me a minute. And he's like resting against the wall, and then it's so cool because there's all pipes in the wall, and then Sherlock taps the wall. And then
hits the pipe.
And in the process saves Watson because he flies across and hits the other guys.
That's a little bit movie magic.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean?
But, I mean, it's
fun.
It's feasible if you flew in the right direction.
Well, if he does indeed get thrown across the room from an electric shock, yes. Yep.
But I just thought you're right. That was a good use of like the surroundings and not just do a one-on-one fight. It was sort of like using the surroundings.
Yeah, so he goes to his wit, he's thinking ahead. He's like, he's leaning on that now. All right.
Yeah, and
I'll stumble, give me a moment, bam.
And so that was working until he ran out of charge.
Yeah, because the next time he goes to do it, the guy Dredger just grabs it and like absorbs whatever's left of the capacitor, and just crumbles it.
And at that point, they're at the boatyard.
Yeah.
And then just fucking destroys the whole boatyard.
The whole boatyard. What destruction. I would have loved to have seen behind the scene footage of how they achieved such a nice looking yacht. Like how much was real, how much was put in there,
I reckon.
I bet there was a boat at one stage, but when it came time for like pillars dropping down, there was no boat and
Then it was all CGI.
Yeah.
And then I definitely think it's probably a real boat going into the water too.
Yeah, that did look pretty bloody. Because to try and CGI water to look correct to our eyes I bet that's a bloody task and a half.
But what year was it? That was like 10 years ago now. So
2009.
So that's quite tricky back then. Even now it's still tricky, like you say.
Yeah.
I just thought that whole sending him flying with the taser was I liked it. It was a nice touch.
It is. And like you said, it goes to show how much he's thinking about his surroundings, where he's at, what can he use to his advantage. Like he's that intelligent that everything is now an option kind of thing. Yeah.
And this movie also has a bit of a thing like last week's movie with Shaun of the Dead. That bromance thing going on.
Yep.
Because straight after that, they get arrested in prison and that's the scheduled friend fight.
And they're like bickering and whatnot. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. And they break up for a bit and they stop being and go their separate ways for a bit. Yeah.
But that's where when they're in the I think it's inside this when they're waiting inside the prison with all the other people, but they're talking about like Watson's complaining. He's like blah 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 blah, and then you experiment on my dog, and Sherlock doesn't care about like experiment. He's like our dog. No, our dog. Like he corrects him. Like it doesn't matter that he's fucking torturing the thing. It matters that it's like no, he's our dog, not your dog. I thought that was funny. Like them, just like you said, they're bickering. They're having their bromance fight.
Yeah, they break up from it, and that's when Sherlock gets like blindfolded and taken. And this is a really good scene because once he gets to wherever they take him, he then proceeds to tell the guy exactly where he is. Yeah. I thought that was so funny, and again showing his.
I like how he said right as he like he just said he explained exactly where he is, and he's like, now the real thing that we have to figure out is why you bothered to blindfold me in the first place. and then he the guy replies, he's like, well, old traditions, I suppose, or something along those lines. But I thought that was good.
And then so I just thought that was so good again, showing his abilities of deduction like Sherlock should have, showing that intelligence. Oh, there's a funny thing throughout the movie. It happens like a couple times. Sherlock tries to pick the lock on the door and Watson kicks the door in.
I was about
second time
I shat myself.
Yeah, I know, right? And the second time he tries to pick the lock, and then Irene just opens it. It's so funny. I'm like, is he ever going to be able to pick a fucking door?
And it's like it's like a movie joke, kind of like he's not going to ever get to fucking pick a door. That's funny, yeah. I like it where they did the one where like Watson he's like refusing to help anymore, and he's about to walk away, and Sherlock's now got to pick that door, and he's there, and it's like so intense, and you're like, oh no, he's walked away. Watson has gone to his wife. He's gone to buy a ring, and he's pissing off, or whatever it was, and yeah, like you said, he's bloody picking the lock, and then bang, like out of nowhere, just Watson's boot. And could you imagine? You're like, when picking a lock, you're trying to hear like a tiny tick. You're trying to, you're like paying attention, and you got your ear almost on the door, right? And then can you imagine just a sledgehammer smacking the ground right next to you? Because that's essentially the sound that would be. It's so loud. Oh man, it'd be disorientating, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And then the second time when Irene does it, she then like drugs him and ties him up to the bed, and he's naked on the bed with a pillow on his crotch. And the maid walks in, and he's like, stay calm. I'm a professional. Now under this pillow is the key to my release. So
how many
funny.
people do you reckon have tried that in like a sexual way? Just like, please help me. Yeah, wink, wink. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, because like, good on Irene. Like, she's not that smart, because it just shows how smart and conniving she is. She's thinking about like, oh well, if I don't want to trap him forever. I want him to be able to get out, but what's a painful way for him to have to try and get loose? Let's put the key under his crutch.
He seemed to not care that much, though, did he really? He wasn't too worried.
No, not really.
Slightly embarrassed, but not really. And then we see that a bit with the bad guy I thought it was a good part of the plot turns out that the bad guy is using science to trick the cult members into believing that the magic is real. And in turn to follow him and do whatever he wants. That's a really cool...
also, I agree. It is extremely cool how they're like, it's essentially a Scooby-Doo movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's like, they've ripped the mask off and they're like, haha, it was just bloody, filthy, whatever his name. Yeah, the bloody janitor. It's revealing what people, because they're naive, they don't know what's happening. They call it magic, or they call it whatever, or they believe whatever. And then when it gets like for us to revealed to the audience, you see like, oh no, there's like this chemical in that thing that then gets like, there's an actual explanation. It's not just like a cult.
It's like that saying, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. It's like that. It's that phrase.
Exactly like that.
Yeah, and then people, just because they don't understand it, they think it's magic. And
well, you drop a nuclear bomb, but don't set it off, but you put it in like, you go back 200 years, you set it in a scientific office, they'll open it up, and then people will start dying. They'll start, from radiation poisoning, but they don't know what that is yet. And then people will come into the room and they'll die. So then they'll lock the room up, board it up. They would paint crosses all over it. They'll think it's cursed just because they're unaware of the actual reality of the situation.
Exactly.
It's interesting, isn't it?
But that would have happened back. I don't know if uranium. I don't know if uranium in the ground is bad, like bad. I think it makes you not well over time, but I don't think it's high enough concentration, is it?
No, I'm sure that they would have to have figured that out over time. Well, I mean, not that we know, but
yeah. So, there's a bit there. So after they had their fight, right? I really loved it. It was like Sherlock brings a body to Watson, and Sherlock's like looking at it and stuff, and Watson's like, oh, I'm not helping you. I'm not interested. And he's trying so hard to not be interested. But
he keeps looking over, and
he can't help himself. And then Sherlock says, that should lead us straight to Duckwood. And Watson's like, not us, you, not us. And then so
not
Sherlock,
us, you.
And then so Sherlock like goes off, or no, he doesn't. What does he say? He says, oh yeah, so Sherlock leaves, and Sherlock has left his gun there on purpose.
Yeah,
right?
And Watson's like tossing up whether or not, he's done it on purpose. Do it.
And Watson's like says to the dog, he's like, he's done that on purpose, right?
Yeah.
And then he goes, obviously, because he can't help himself.
He can't help himself. Yeah, obviously he goes. I think
so good, that dynamic.
I think that that dynamic, the way that they bounce off each other, which is another reason why we think it's like a bromantic movie. You know, it's a little bit, but a bit earlier. I think it's a bit earlier, where where Sherlock's like discovered that the flies fly counterclockwise if he plays a specific set of chords. And Watson walks in and he starts explaining that, and he picks up the vial that obviously Sherlock has been utilizing. And he's like, you shouldn't. This is for eye surgery. And I looked it up, and do you know what they use for eye surgery? Like the anesthetic that he was administering. It was cocaine. He was high off his fucking rocker on cocaine, thinking that the flies were flying in a pattern when he's playing. I thought that was hysterical, because they are crazy. When you go down a path of consistent cocaine use, you do get a bit crazy. You start thinking someone's listening. And he's like picked up on this secret to the way flies fly around in a specific pattern. And then obviously, according to whatever's playing, which is, hey, look, it might be true, but it's probably more to do with what he's thinking in his own mind. And I like it when Watson comes over and just like, oh, okay, so then what happens when I do this? And he lifts up the jar and taps and lets all the flies go away just after
Sherlock. Watson said to Sherlock, how long did it take you to catch all these flies? 6 hours.
So what happened if I did this? Ting, 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 ting.
And then look on his face.
I know, right? Could you imagine he's like spent that long with bloody tweezers or whatever, trying to get one in, and then he caught one, he put it under, and 2 got out, and fucking it would be like this. It would be this thing. All right.
There's a bit where Irene gets tied up on the saw.
That's right. They're in the butchery.
And so to complement the directing and the filming and all that, like they did such a fantastic job of the suspense of like trying to get her down, and the action, and so well done, I thought.
I know, I concur. I loved the way he was so like, he went to grab a thing and it failed, and he's like, fuck, got to try something else. And like he tried multiple plans and not everything worked, instead of the whole like, I walk in, I shoot that thing on the wall and she gets fallen down, it's easy. It was like it was a struggle, and it was like you said, it was bloody like build up suspense. You're like, oh
fuck, the breath's gonna get cut in half, oh no.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then just after that, they think they're safe, and then the big explosion. That was good.
That's
too.
right. Like, no, another slow-mo.
Very quiet, only that sad violin playing. That was so
And you
good.
see how you get to witness in that scene where Watson is like because he used to be in the army, or whatever they call the army, and he steps and he hears like a tick tick, like he pulled the pin out or something.
That's right.
And he looks down and he like Sherlock, no! And all of this in slow motion, barrels exploding around in flames, and then the scene where Sherlock's like running and he runs back to Irene, but like he holds this like crate to his side, and then an explosion goes off, and he gets like nudged, like obviously not in real life, but he pretends to get nudged by the explosion, and it all looks, you're right, the way, so good.
And then also he grabs Irene and then he runs back towards the explosion. I guess because he knew it was going to throw him backwards. So he ran into it. I guess maybe. And so, he ran into it and then gets thrown back. It's just, it's so good.
It really reminds me, just that specific scene, it reminds me in the second one, I think they tried to mimic that scene with that battle in the forest. You know how the guns are going off, the cannons are going off, and they're just hitting the ground with big craters.
Slow motion,
it's mostly in slow motion. And one thing I really liked, not to skip too far ahead, but in that second one, I feel like they did a lot more of that where, the camera's locked to the motion of the body, like the one person.
Yes, particularly in that forest scene, I noticed that, yes.
Yes, and I really do like that when they use that, not a lot, but like when they do make it, like when there was, they did it where the sniper or one of the riflemen, he like turns around and he goes to shoot, but like the camera's like pinned to his chest and you're like with him while he's turning and he bang. And I like scenes like that because it really puts you in it, like, because we watch movies and the camera generally is panning, it's like smooth, and it just doesn't make sense to my mind why we're always moving. Our eyes are always moving around. They're never still, like never. Even if you're breathing as still as you can, there's always a bit of vibration, a bit of whatever.
You don't want to make people seasick though watching it, because it's one thing through your own eyes and different through a camera shaking. Do you know what I mean? Like,
no, I think the issue is like because it's not VR, you know what I mean? It's not like directly, because we're getting the still around from our surroundings, and then we're trying to focus on this square image that is still, but the image is not still. And that is, maybe that's the issue there, because I know with VR, obviously you do get a bit sickness, but like I've played around with it for a few hours, and like, you know, it's only like a 20-minute at a time thing, because you want to pass it on, because you do get a bit disorientated. But is that just because we're not used to it? You know, our brains aren't currently going into it, and give it like 20 years when that's the normal. Like, why the fuck would we go to work? Bloody COVID-19 or COVID-27 is going around, and you're like, fuck it, put the VR on, and our brains are now acclimatized. You know, it's not so bad that you don't get that, I don't know, seasick or boat sickness or whatever, you know?
Exactly.
I wonder about that. It just, that's something I think about a lot as to why we do like a still image, like, smooth, not jaggedy jumping around, not like 28 days later or whatever, you know, where it's like a camera job running around. I find that odd when we are never still, like our vision is never like that. Yeah. And so it must be the perspective of your surroundings plus the moving image. Yeah.
So, and then before they get to the next scene, they make us think that like Watson has died, and like you don't know he's survived yet. And
yeah, you're not sure. Yeah.
I mean, only 5 minutes later you see he's fine, and that just showing the like the sad music when the explosions are going off and that, and then it comes to the bit where it's like, oh, here we go. So this is where they've almost threatened, because he's not dead. They've threatened Watson. So now, that's it now. It's revenge time, you know? Get the revenge from my brother sort of thing. And that's another plot thing that happens there.
Yeah, okay.
Which is, I thought was pretty good.
That's pretty cool.
And then, of course, you have to have the obligatory detective time thing where he has his little division thing, and then finally explains it to all his friends in that scene. That's
he reveals what he already knew probably from the start.
And that's like, all right, we're not on the defense now, we're on the attack.
Yeah.
And then that's when,
just a quick little thing that earlier when Lestrade let Sherlock out, and, you know, just before he gets taken to, you know, the Illuminati hideout, which he knew exactly where it was, but like when he just gets taken out of the lockup, he what's his name? Inspector Lestrade says to him, he's like, you know what? In another life, you would have made an excellent criminal. And Sherlock replies, and you, a police officer. How fucking funny is that? I thought that was so clever. There's a lot of little clever wit things that he says that are just like he doesn't tell a joke, but his response to what you've just said is the joke itself. It's I like that.
Yeah, that's good. So then,
but yeah, anyway, sorry.
That's right. So we've got another thing they do in the movie as well, is that they like to, I haven't quite written my note out very well here.
No, you're right.
Can we think about my note? So like, they like to show you something, like sort of creating that mystery, that intrigue, and then they explain it like after the fact, you know what I mean? Like, something happens, like Sherlock discovers something, but they don't explain. Almost like when he was a homeless guy and he bumps into the carriage. You don't know how that happened. And then after, they then explain it.
They essentially let the audience try and figure it out, like as well as letting them know exactly what's happening. But they obviously delay the letting you know, just so you have that moment of, ooh, intrigue, what's going on, ooh.
Yeah, it's like, oh. And then, oh, that's what happened.
Exactly. And it also, like, in the way, it makes it fun because you're piecing it together.
Yeah,
and
you're trying to work out.
Because then they let you know if you're wrong or right. And if you get it right, it's awesome. And if you get it wrong, you're like, oh, I'll get the next one. You know, like it definitely keeps you wanting more, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And then I've only got a couple more notes now. So I'm at the end now.
Just quickly, sorry. I just want to, you know, I said before how he's like, you know, he's our dog, not your dog. there's a like he does that to Watson all the time. He's forever correcting him when he says something, like especially earlier in the movie, he corrects him with the they're not dwarfs, they're midgets. Like he really corrects him. Like he's like, no, I'm telling you, they are midgets. Like he was so like adamant to him, and it's funny how often that comes up throughout this movie and the next one, how he loves to almost one up or at least like pay out Watson. You know what I mean? Like just put him down. He puts him back a little bit.
It's kind of like belittle, but not quite. It's like
I guess it would be belittling if they weren't friends. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Because they have that relationship, he's almost allowed to, you know, poke and prod and make fun of, just as Watson is allowed to call him on his shit and say he's an idiot. You know, no, I'm not looking. Yeah, you know, it's a relationship that they got going on.
So a
good bromance movie.
Yeah, my last couple of notes are at the end of the movie now. So do you have anything in between, or just do it? Or whatever.
Well, I've got 3 notes left just on this movie, just on the first one. Yeah. So
that's what I'm saying. I've got only a couple of notes at the end of this, towards the end of this movie, the first movie.
Well, one's nice. It's just a real sharp. I like where they're cleaning up. They're kind of like where I think Sherlock says to Watson, he's just found out, you know, he's actually still alive, and he's like. He sits down next to him. He's like, well, it's just, you know, it's good, you know, to have you with us. And Watson replies like with a grunt, just like, I really get what they're doing there. I mean, it must be a male thing traditionally, just because like you're not taught to express and whatever. And like, those words are all that's needed between good friends. You literally just need a tip of the hat, a nod, and you know everything's okay. Everything is all right. You don't need to go and like, what was the weather yesterday? Oh, did you take the dog for a walk? You know, like all of those little things don't matter. But the fact that he just did like a little, you know, it's good, you know, to have you with us. And his only response was, like a grunt. And I really, I don't know, I connect with that because I think that's probably like I am a little bit, you know.
It's a bit like Shaun of the Dead too with their dynamic as well. It's kind of,
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. They do have that.
It's all part of the bromance, you
know. All right. So, and I got another quick question here. Like, why do you think they chose to make Blackwood have that weird front tooth? Like, do you reckon it was just to make him feel a bit more creepy, like a bit different? Does the actor
have that or not?
No, he does not.
No, okay, so that's intentional. I don't know. The makeup artist must have thought
unless he got it fucking fixed afterwards. No, he doesn't. I've just had a look. No, he doesn't. I think it may have been just about, but I felt it was a bit unnecessary. Like it was just yet another thing. Now, I guess because it is set back in olden times where you're less likely to go to the dentist, aren't you?
They should have all had terrible teeth, to be honest.
Yeah, but especially you're right.
The UK.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's even today you're right, but maybe that's what it is. It's the contrast because like Watson and Sherlock, they all have excellent teeth, and he was like the one that I noticed that had one fucked up crooked front tooth, and because they all should have had bad teeth, that's the only reason why I saw it is because they didn't. I don't know.
Because like particularly with even today, like with the UK and stuff, they don't have dental like we do. They don't get government funding and assistance and all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
So their teeth are quite often pretty bad.
Yeah, I've heard that. I'm not sure about, but even from my dad, he was born there and he lived there for a long time of his life. Yeah. But he's even said, he's like, it's not common. You don't just go to the dentist and get things fixed. It's like, oh shit, you had a tumor removed and they also fixed your teeth up.
Yeah. So towards the end now, so I've got. So they finally on top of the bridge with the bad guy with Blackwell. Is it Blackwell or Blackwood?
With Blackwood.
Blackwood. They're on there.
And what's her name's up there as well?
Irene's up there too.
Irene, yeah.
So they do the good old. We have to explain to the bad guy how we caught him and explain how he did the murders and all that, so that we get to see why. But he does it through explaining it to the bad guy. which is kind of cool. It's like they're not just telling us; they're telling the bad guy. Because he's like, there must be catch me. Yeah.
I bet there's a common phrase or like a thing for that. What that thing that they do in movies where they explain to both the audience and the character. Like there has to be because it happens too frequently in movies that's like maybe they call it like an audience explanation or a
quick little
there's got to be a couple words strung together that means that thing that they do in movies. I'm gonna have to keep an eye on that because it's obviously common for us to pick up on it and go, oh, that's good, I like it that they did that. It wasn't just like an opening monologue explaining everything and now we're getting into the movie.
And it seems to be like a compulsory thing that they do in movies like this. It's quite
pretty
compulsory,
much,
and then
it'd have to be. I think for that reason, particularly for what you said, it doesn't pull you out of it because it would pull you out of it if like we're watching an action scene and then we heard some strange narrator that hasn't been in the movie to go, and then he moved the leg of the chair 3 inches over, that would take you out of it.
Or Watson, Sherlock grabbing the camera and talking directly at the camera. You know how they do that sometimes. They do that's when they're interacting with the audience, and that's a different kind of movie.
A different kind of movie, exactly. Because like that is acceptable, especially in like a psychological movie, one where you think the person's going insane, and then they're like talking to you as their own brain. They're like, "Help me out." That works so well in my like Legion. I think that show was,
Legion,
wasn't
I was going to say, you ever watched Legion? Yes.
Yeah.
They do that there. That is so good.
And I love that. I'm going to rewatch that now. Goddamn. It is creepy. Now, just on that as well, there's a quick scene, and I don't want to move too far away from the movie, but there's a scene in Mr. Robot, right, where he's like, he's on the train. He's like, he just looked up and he's like, there's no one else on this train carriage with me. There's no one else. This is weird. And you know how awkward he is. Yes. And then he stands up and he walks over and he looks into the next carriage. There is himself and his sister and his dad having a conversation. And he's like stuck in this empty carriage, bashing on the walls like, help, come on, get me. What's going on? And then and then it flashes to him like he opens his eyes and he is standing there having the conversation with his sister and his dad. But like a second ago, he was stuck in an empty train carriage. I love weird things like that where it like throws you out.
Because he's talking to them, but he feels trapped in his own head. That's kind of like, it's so integral to the mental illness thing. It's so good.
I really like that. Yeah, things like that where it's just psychologically fucking with you. You're like, isn't he? Oh shit, that wasn't even real. That whole season he was in a psych ward.
Something like that too. Yeah. We have to do some of those seasons. At least 3 seasons of some shows. Not like 6 seasons, you go crazy.
Yeah, no, you're right. That is a bit too much, I think.
Generally, any series, the first season's enough, I think.
Generally, definitely. I could agree with that. But also, there are some shows where you're like, no, I'm not watching only one season. That's not happening. I got to watch all of it.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right, exactly.
I could also see us in the future doing like, let's do this specific episode of Doctor Who or whatever, specific ones and like favorites, Like
I could definitely see us doing that. Yeah. Like the Weeping Angels. Oh, that's so good. That's a good one.
I wasn't even thinking of that one, but that's the one.
That's a fucking good one. I watched that like a few weeks ago. It was so good.
I also think about watching that. Remember how I said on our intro episode, I said about that "Are You My Mummy?" That episode that scared the shit out of me. I would love to rewatch it and try and justify my own feelings when I was a child. That would be interesting too.
Or you might watch it again and go, "Why was that scary?"
Yeah, that's fucking nothing, man. There's no gore, no blood. What the hell?
No, it's just the whole idea is creepy.
It is. It bloody is. Yeah.
And so they do the whole explain to the bad guy how they caught him, but then they also
back to the movie. Yep.
Also, Irene gets let go, and I'm like, all right. So she's been let go for a sequel for the second movie, I guess.
Because I could have seen it. Like it is a bit of it because I would have liked to have seen Blackwood kill her. Like not like I'd enjoyed it, but like that would have been a really nice point in the plot to give Sherlock the motivation. Now obviously they left that exactly. They get that in number 2, but that was just me thinking on it at the end of the first one, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, no, that's the obvious. She falls down onto like just another level underneath.
And
like
in the second one, they get rid of her pretty quick. So I'm thinking they didn't really want her in the show anymore when they got to the second one. Like she didn't fit in because they made it such a point that she was going to be a big thing in the next movie, but she's only in it for not even a quarter of the movie, you know, like 10 minutes.
Look, I'm not sure if it was a personal thing, maybe, but I'm not sure. I wonder why. No,
yeah, it was quite early they got rid of her, but yeah, after making such a big deal of her not being dead in the first one, just thought she would have been in it more. But that's fine.
It did seem like it, and especially like I really liked her the way she was. Like she was the opposite of Sherlock, you know, like, and they really worked well together. But also, could you have imagined if they did make her more of a presence in the second movie, that there would have been less Watson, wouldn't there? They would have had to have been. That's just how it works. Like, I wonder.
Yeah, no,
and I'm glad they didn't sacrifice on that, because that's what we're here to see. Yes, it's great to have like a happy ending. He's got a love interest and whatever, but like, let's be honest, we're watching this for Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. Like that's what we're here for.
That's what it is. That's the whole So and then after that, sorry.
No. I've just got one last note, so you go.
All right. So after that, they're back at the apartment. Get Watson.
No, sorry. No, I got to cut you off. My notes before that. I know it's jumping around's annoying, but I just thought it was a beautiful, brutal ending for Blackwood, seeing him hung over London Bridge being constructed, like he's just swinging there. And I love the scene where he's like hanging, like he's laying down on like a bed of chains or whatever, you know what I mean? And then they give way, and you see the chains all falling, and then all of a sudden they get taut like a jank, like a I don't know, like and you can just see that he's just like, and he's bloody hanging there. I thought that was such a beautiful, brutal ending. And they didn't even show much. Like, it wasn't brutal to the eyes. It was the idea of it was fucked up. But they managed to make it so fucked up, but without having to show how bad it was. And I love the way they managed that with the chains unraveling and then getting tore like really quickly. I thought that's what would happen. Such an awesome scene.
That would yank your body so hard if that happened. And
it would snap your neck.
Yeah.
But obviously, movie magic.
But they showed that power, which is not done often. They usually get that wrong.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. Sorry. Now they're back at the apartment.
Yeah, they're back at the apartment, and so Watson and I think it's his wife Mary walk in, and Sherlock's just hanging from the roof. He's just hanging himself, and of course he's not dead. And then and then he continues on to explain how the bad guy did it and didn't get strangled to death at the start.
Yeah, how Watson managed to, because he pronounced him dead because he didn't have a pulse, and he goes through the whole thing and while he's trying to explain, he's like, Watson, do you mind if I do this from the floor? That would be good. He's like, no, I don't want to interrupt your flow of things. Go for it. And that's like Watson getting one back. He's getting a bit back from it.
And then also while Sherlock's explaining stuff, he's like, and as for his heart stopping, and he's tested the fucking heart stopping drug on the dog again.
On the dog, man. Yeah, on the bloody dog. Poor dog.
Poor fucking dog.
And I mean, not that it's a beautiful looking dog. It's like a bloody, I don't know, American bulldog or something. But it's still like, the poor dog, he didn't want that. And I wonder, like, obviously this is something that everyone thinks of. No, but I wonder if dogs, like, because I imagine dogs have thoughts. Maybe they're not thoughts like we have thoughts, like a train of voice, but maybe they have like, food, hungry, you know, horny, the standards. Yeah. So, and they obviously have fear and anxiety. They definitely have that. So like, he obviously wasn't showing any of that, but I wonder what a dog would have been thinking, like trying to put it in its mind, what's happening to me? I'm paralyzed. Like, well, how would it have tried to even put it into its own consciousness? Or would it have just been like, I'm tired, sleep. Oh, I'm awake. You know, I always think about things like that. No one knows. We're not going to know.
The thing is that because we can't communicate with dogs, we can't know. And even then, you don't know how I think, and I don't know how you think. And
well, for all I know, everyone else is a simulation. I know I am me, but I don't know anyone else is them.
You can write down what someone else says they think. Like, but that does not give you a true indication of what it's like to be that person. You can never truly know.
Well, yeah, no, you're right.
Me explaining myself to you it's not like 100% what I'm trying to get across. And you might interpret it differently. Right. And yeah, it's so, that stuff amazes me. Like, you truly don't
the way
know.
I think, not to change the topic too much at all, but if you ever, I don't know, partake in some sort of psychedelics or anything, you start to, there's a specific strong one that I won't mention. You get taken to another place, right?
Yeah.
And the way you meet these like beings, these alien, I'm only calling them aliens, but like not of here. They're these weird ever-changing shapes. But the way that they communicate with you are like that to me is like, obviously it's all in my thoughts. I know it's not real, but like it's like that's the aim. You're trying to communicate without words, but the pure communication, it is literally transferring thoughts to one other's brain.
Yeah, and you get a sense of that.
But that's impossible. We can't have that. And the closest thing I feel that we have to that is writing. I know word is easier to communicate with each other because you get tone and whatever, but for someone to write something down and then go back over it and reword it and go back over it and reword it again and take that out and move that there. I feel like that's them slowly getting closer to the thing, but it's still not quite there. But I think that's the best we have
of understanding someone. Yeah, I totally agree.
Now the only level above that would be someone reading out their own thoughts. Like afterwards, if they sat there with that bit of paper where it's, worded perfectly and then they tried to explain with you and sat down, like that's the only way to really get a judge of what someone means 100%. And even then it's not 100%.
No. And then there's people take it out of context and that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, that's true. Exactly.
Pisses me off to no end, but anyway.
Context is everything.
I know. I think people have forgotten that these days.
No, they have. And then they go like, oh, you've got to use this word for my gender. It's like, okay. But you've got to understand that I'm going to make mistakes along the way. Like, and also you can't just make this word mean this thing when in the 100 years prior, this word has meant this other thing. And we're still using it as that other meaning, but now you're trying to change it and you're getting angry at people for still using it the way it was used and is still used. It's a very... a bloody complicated topic.
Yeah. And then, of course, then this is where it gets revealed that Moriarty was an Irene. Well, Irene was helping Moriarty because she wanted something from the device.
And that's because, what does she say? Because like Sherlock's like, so what does he have against you? How is he like twisting, controlling your strings or something? And she's like, well, I only had one thing that clouded my judgment or something along those lines, and she just looked longingly at Sherlock, and he didn't need her to answer it. He knew that it was him. He was her weakness.
Yeah, and she is
exactly. It's a two-way street. Yeah.
So then that's when I realized, the guy in the carriage isn't Blackwood, the fucking Moriarty dumbass. And that's the end of my notes for that.
Let's not rate it. We'll rate it at the end.
I've got a trivia bit or two. What do you got?
Well, I just got bits and pieces over the way. But no, tell me, give me some. I find it interesting.
In the stories, so obviously Sherlock Holmes, the books and stuff. I don't know who used to write them, but whoever that was.
No, the originals.
The original sort of ones. Holmes is described to be an expert in 𝗵𝗲𝗄, it's called. In the film, they use Wing Chun Kung Fu.
Oh, okay.
Which is famously used by Ip Man, IP Man, or whatever you want to call that.
Okay.
And Bruce Lee. So it's good for on screen. So they changed it in that extent.
Okay. I wonder. Yeah. So because it looks better. Yeah.
Yeah. And also it says here that Robert Downey Jr. is a practitioner of the art in real life. So he practices that kung fu. And it says here that the fight scene, at the Punch Bowl, where they're having that boxing match.
Yeah.
That was coordinated by Robert Downey and his trainer. They both coordinated that. scene, which is pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah. I think 𝗵𝗵𝗱ance is fighting with a stick. I think it's because Sherlock in the old stuff usually has like his walking stick. Watson has one too. I think 𝗵𝗱ance is fighting with one of those. I think that's what that is. Which is cool.
I've got a little thing as well. The in the first movie, obviously we get shadows of Moriarty, but that was actually just voiced by I think it was one of the directors or writers, because it was like it was unnecessary to have figured out, because they hadn't figured out that they were going to cast whoever as Moriarty,
and that's why they blurred his face, because they didn't know who it was yet. They didn't want to stick a face on prematurely, you know. That probably wasn't the only reason. It's more intriguing to go, ooh, who's that in the shadows?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's also why the second one is called The Game of Shadows.
Yeah, because it was in the shadows.
You're trying to figure out who it is, you know?
Genius. I just had an epiphany. So there's a quote in the movie that I didn't really notice until after, when I was looking at the trivia stuff. It says, crime is common, logic is rare. I like that.
Yeah,
so good.
There's another quote along those lines of like, some people use theories to string facts, other people use facts to string theories, or something along those lines. And I'm like, oh, that's so good, because you can think every possibility is gonna happen. Like a meteor might hit us. Yeah, okay, all right, but let's study let's just listen to what is happening and then make theories off of what is happening, instead of the other way around and making theories and hoping reality. Facts, that just doesn't seem quite right, does it? But yeah, it is quite. A lot of this is like it's such a pro-logic movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's telling you to like piece it together, figure out. There's clues here and there's answers here. So let's I think that's pretty cool. They are very good movies.
So that's the end of my notes for the first one. Are we doing like overview now for the first one, or
if you've got do some overview notes of just the first one. Go for it. Yeah.
So I thought, like, with the camera work and stuff, that was very well done. There was nothing unsettling with the camera angles, and wasn't too shaky. You know, it wasn't disorientating or anything.
No, even when they did the explosion scene and he's like running away, they made that so nice look. Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%.
And so with the sets and stuff, like it was so well done, and showing the look of how London would look in the old days with dirty coal and grime everywhere. It was so fit to the time, and it was so good.
Just a couple of scenes I saw, like when they were sitting up on the bridge. There was another one when they were I think they were in the meat hook, you know, where Irene's about to get cut in half. There was a scene bit there where I thought looked a bit, but I noticed a few scenes of green screen. Like I noticed it, and could it be the copy I've got?
As in, you noticed that they had used a green screen?
Yeah, that they definitely, like it was very clear that, and like you can see like the cutting around the body shape, like to make sure that it, you know, like there was just, now that again could have been the copy I had, it could have been a lot of things.
It might have been accentuated from like the copy you had and stuff, because I definitely didn't notice that. I noticed that.
Now, they obviously had to use green screen, because there's no way that they would let actors get up on top of a rickety old building and shit.
The only thing that I thought was definitely green screen was when they're up on top of the bridge getting built. That was definitely. That's the main one that I'm thinking of, where, especially when he's sitting down next to Irene Adler. I could tell that they were sitting on green blocks. And like, not that they were sitting on green blocks, sorry, but they were sitting on a set, but like it was all green behind them, and you could kind of see the cutouts of like, you know, of the skyline around their hair and whatever. Yeah, that's hard to do, though.
Obviously, extremely hard to do.
10 years ago too. Now there'd be no excuse. There's no excuse for it.
They did an amazing job at the time, for sure. These are just little nitpicky things.
So
anything else?
The music. I love the music in these two movies.
And it's very specific to this, isn't it?
It stands out. Yeah, and it's so good. And the way it contributes to the action. So there's like an action scene. They're good at making you feel action through the music.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's like orchestra almost. It gets to crescendos and shit, whatever they call it. Get to the build-ups and the drops and all that. It's like, yeah, and it gets faster as things are happening, and it's just, I like it.
But it's always that the one sound they've managed to maintain through it, kind of thing. That's the specific instruments they've used. They've kept it through, and it does suit throughout the whole thing.
And those instruments give you the feel of, again, the old London style, like
definitely,
like pirate times. Like you've got like bongos, of course, but you've got things like not just a grand piano, but like the old style pianos that made that really different kind of sound. More like metallic sound. No, I know what you're talking.
They were more like honky tonk. What do they call that? Ragtime. You know how you
cheap upright piano sort of sound. That was that so suited, and even more so in the second one because you had the gypsy woman. That was all went with that as well. So good. Yeah.
All right. So shall we head on to the second one?
So should we give this a quick rating or?
I think save the rating to the end.
Yeah,
do both together.
Both of mine have the same rating. About budget, we can do that. So the budget.
Yeah, do the budget. What's the budget?
Budget in the first one was 90 million.
How much? Say that again.
90 million.
Fuck.
10 years ago.
Oh, what was the budget for Shaun of the Dead?
Shaun of the Dead was like 9 or 8 million or something, wasn't it?
Oh my God. Yeah, I just looked at your notes. Yeah, it is. Wow.
And then box office, they made half a billion, 524 million. So that's a pretty good return.
Fucking hell. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow, that's such a massive difference. That puts it into perspective. And then you go to the latest Black Panther or whatever the fuck, and you're like, fuck, goes even more so.
All right, so Game of Shadows.
Go for it, mate.
So a difference here with the first one, they changed it up a bit at the intro. So this time they had Watson recounting the whole story while he's on his typewriter. So obviously he writes down everything they do together. So it's him writing that. At the end of the day, I guess he's sitting down to write it, what happened. I thought that's a nice touch, It's a different style, I think that was cool.
Yeah, it wasn't just the same opening.
And then this time, this really stood out to me. The fight at the start of this one. That was so good. Do you remember the fight?
Yeah, I was just about to say, you're going to have to remind me where.
So, because they got Irene had a package or something. Sherlock was following her.
Yes.
And then he said to her, there's 3 guys following us or whatever, thinking they were following her.
That's right.
But they were her bodyguards.
Yeah, because this is the one where that's where he grabs the rice. He grabs the rice. Yeah.
And then, so they go down an alleyway, and then, of course, he gets confronted by the guys, the 4 of them? 3 or 4?
3 or 4.
And so they start fighting initially. There's no slow-mo thing or anything. It's just is there or is there? There might be, but there's no explanation.
I think there's a slow-mo cut, but I don't think they do I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do that.
So they have a bit of a fight and the cops walk by?
Yeah.
And I love that bit where he drops, because they've got him pinned up against the wall, right? And when the cops come, they let go of him. I love how he just falls into a meditation pose.
Yeah, straight away he's got his arms out. He may as well be saying,
so perfect. It's so perfect, but he actually is thinking, though. And they throw money at him thinking he's a beggar, like homeless guy trying to get the cops to move on. And then he does the slow-mo thing. There's no explanation of what's happening, but they show events like foresight almost. They show what's going to happen in visions, like that guy's going to have a knife and the apple gets thrown up in the air. Right? So then
Sorry, no, I've just got a little trivia fact that I wrote down, but it's to do with the whole movie. Continue though. Oh,
yeah. Right. So, and the apple and all that. And so then they do it full speed. And I love how at the end he just catches the apple.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah. And then also
he planned it out.
And also then when he kneels down on the ground, like almost in a praying position, and then he grabs the gun out of the guy's hand and all that. It's so, I love this like bloody Buddhist looking fight. So it was so like, yeah, like all around meditation and stuff. It just felt so cool. It's really, really impressed me.
Now, I just thought this is quite a cool little bit of trivia to do with this movie. I feel like you might understand, it might connect with you as well. The slow motion work done in this film, not the first one, but specifically this film, is an English filmmaker who works for Rooster Teeth Production and also is known for his web series, The Slow-Mo Guys, on YouTube. He is Gavin from the Slow-Mo Guy. I thought that was mind-numb. I thought that was sick. Like, holy shit. So I've watched like almost all of their slow-mo videos, and now like realizing that he was a part of the filming makes sense as to why that ending scene, it looks so well.
And so, okay, so now that you bring that up, in the forest, with the slow-mo cannons and gunshots and all that, that's particularly where, is it Gavin? Gavin does that. That's particularly where his skills were used in that shot in particular. So, you know how they're filming, like everyone's running in slow motion, right? And the camera is still panning across side to side or whatever. Faster than they're going. So when they filmed this, there was like a track that the camera was on, right? So they had two cameras on a track, and it could move at about. So the carriage on it with the cameras could move at 10 meters per second, right?
All right. Yep. I don't even know what that means. That's
10 meters a second.
Yeah. What is that in kilometers an hour? I've fucking no idea what 10 meters a second is.
Oh, no, just think of it. Traveling 10 meters in a second.
Yeah, but I mean, if that's 50k an hour, I still don't think that's nothing. That's whatever. That's fuck it. Okay, a car. Yes.
Let's see. What is that? It was fast enough. They didn't want to have a person on there. So that they weren't operated by a human.
Well, did you say it's 10 meters a second?
Yeah. Now that I think about it, is that actually that fast?
That's 36 kilometers an hour.
So why were they scared to put people on it?
Yeah, that to me is nothing. I mean, it's not nothing. I can imagine being a person running that fast would be like, what the fuck? But
okay, yeah. So anyway, so it can move that fast. It must have been faster because it doesn't seem fast enough to be amazing.
Worrisome.
Worrisome. So the cameras are all electronically controlled with no human operators. So obviously they program in the shot and it does it.
Yeah,
goes down the track, comes back up. Because to get that camera to pan, like with the running, you have to get it to go faster so that when you slow it down, the panning is still at real speed.
Yeah. There's a lot that would go behind it to like know the little tricks to go, oh no, here we need to speed up. But the reason to speed up there is so that when we do slow it down, it looks right. Yeah.
So Gavin would set it all up and then it would fly away, come flying back, and then he would get the footage off it. And stuff like that. Yeah, because there's a Corridor Digital video where Gavin's on there and they talk about that scene.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to add that to my watch list. That's interesting.
And so they had two cameras on the trolley, one doing a wide angle and one doing a close-up. So it could film both distances at the same time.
Yeah, so then they can make it look...
Now, there's another bit that Gavin talks about in the video I watched. There's a bit where there's a bullet and it grazes the side of Jude Law or Watson.
Yeah.
There's a bullet, gets the side of his chest and his vest gets all torn apart and stuff. It's like they actually shot that separately. So they had a dummy on a green screen wearing the same exact clothes and they shot it with a gun, like a real gun. So they shot it with a real bullet. So the speed of the bullet and the accuracy to the physics and stuff was real because they actually did do it.
That is cool.
Just not shooting the actor.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, they put it over the top of him. Yeah.
And so also in that shot, some of the trees exploding and stuff, they weren't exploding when they filmed it with the actors. That was done on green screen they replicated the trucks and speed, and they had trees exploding and stuff. So
okay,
there were explosions on set, so that the actors were around. So like the cannon explosives, that was all. The actors had explosions for that.
That's cool, because you kind of need that to reference to like, hey, like, you know, when you get startled or whatever, you kind of need it.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's hard to act without.
Yeah.
I mean, that way, you don't have to act. It's more honest. The response is, oh shit.
Yeah, exactly. A bit more realistic.
So yeah, that.
So how do we get to the where do we? How long does it take to get to the gypsy camp? Where are we?
So I don't actually know. Was it after the wedding or before? No, it's before the wedding. At the stag
It's before
party.
the wedding. It's before the wedding. Yeah.
At the bachelor party or the stag party or whatever. Yeah, which is just before that.
Yeah.
So just a couple of bits I want to do earlier on. So the scene where Irene goes to Moriarty. And they're in the diner.
Oh, and he clears everyone out.
That is so good at showing his power. And his position in society, and just click his fingers or whatever. And the whole restaurant empties. Like, now that's power.
And then we find out that, isn't that where he oh no, later on in the movie, he kills her with the,
I don't know if you
noticed. The rare form of tuberculosis.
Yeah, that happens there. I don't know if you noticed, but when they don't show it. They're looking at him sitting there, right? And in the background, you hear Irene collapse. I don't know if you heard that.
I didn't know. I didn't. I probably, I know.
So in my system, I heard you could hear her collapse and like faint, or I thought initially the bad guys had grabbed her and taken her away. But no, she collapsed from the tuberculosis, which they clarify later on. So I didn't think she was dead then. I thought
I was pretty sure.
That,
you thought she was captured and, held captive, I
didn't know she was dead. And then, they'll explain that later on. So, and then...
So they're at, where they're going to the, what is it, for Watson's...
Oh, yeah.
They're at the, where's that place?
I got something I just want to mention before that.
Yeah, go.
So... They're at the apartment and Watson walks in. Sherlock is drinking something. And this is like in the first one, how you did the cocaine and the eye drops.
Yeah.
And Watson's like, Sherlock, you're drinking embalming fluid. Like, what are you doing? You know what they used to they use them to, what do they use that for? That's like mummification. Like,
yeah, I was going to say it's to preserve dead bodies, isn't it?
Yeah, preserve dead bodies. That was so funny, he's drinking it. So I'm thinking to myself, I think that would kill you.
Yeah, right? But maybe he's diluted it in the right way, he thinks of everything. Yeah.
So I Googled it, and so the top result in Google is about what happens if you drink it, and it's directly related to Sherlock Holmes and the Game of Shadows. So you click it, and it's like, in the movie Sherlock Holmes Game of Shadows, you see him drink embalming fluid. I'm like, oh my God, this is so perfect. And turns out I was right. It will kill you. Even 1 ounce, which is 30 mil. So a shot glass is enough to kill an adult. So just 1 shot glass of embalming fluid will kill you. Or you'll be extremely ill.
Because isn't that where he's like, yeah, okay.
I don't know. Like you say, you could have diluted it, but if 1 ounce is bad for you, you probably shouldn't drink any.
Probably. Well, like, if something's fatal, but like things, just because it's fatal at a certain dose doesn't mean just a bit less than that dose. It destroys your liver. It does the other things, It definitely would wreak havoc.
So, don't drink that because it will kill you.
For audience, don't drink embalming fluid.
Unless you want to die, then it's probably a good idea.
Well, then, choose that. Definitely. All right. So now we're at Watson's honeymoon, not honeymoon, bloody bachelors.
So on the way to there, I believe it's on the way to there, when you meet Stephen Fry as Mycroft.
Mycroft Holmes
is with Watson in the carriage. And
the motorised carriage.
Yeah, no, not maybe. And Sherlock's got the disguise on. and they're leaving, and so Watson says to him, so if you believe Moriarty has you under observation, isn't this a bit conspicuous? And he's got this really bad disguise and stuff. And then Sherlock replies, it's so overt, it's covert.
I like that.
I love that bit so much. And also
so overt, it's covert. That's true, isn't it? Because sometimes hiding in plain sight is the real option.
Yeah. And I thought the goggles they're wearing, these driving goggles, they look so cool. So awesome.
They look like steampunky, you know? They look like they're old school. What? I don't know. Yeah, steampunk, I think, is the right word for it.
And that's when they go and meet Stephen. Mycroft is Stephen Fry. I thought that is a perfect actor for that. Like,
he is, isn't
so
he?
Perfect.
I like,
so
the
good.
way he carries himself and everything. It seems like he's, smart. He's kind of carefree. He doesn't really give a fuck. Like well, as they say in it, because when Sherlock is describing him, he calls him like he has zero ambition, but he's found himself in a place where the UK, United Kingdom's government or whatever, holds him at high regard. So like he doesn't really care about it, and he has that. It shows it a bit later where he's almost apathetic, to certain things. Like he just walks out completely naked because he doesn't care about but whereas Watson's wife, I've forgotten her name, damn it. Mary, thank you. I was like Martha, Mary. And she's like, oh, looking up and looking away, making sure not to look down and whatever. But he's just like, whatever. I mean, it is what it is.
And I remember thinking at that time, I'm like, because I'm thinking of other things while I'm watching, I'm not just like of previous stuff and other notes and stuff. I was thinking, they're not showing us many of his, there's no new abilities this time. There's nothing new. He hasn't learned any new tricks or anything. And last time in the first movie, they focused on his deduction powers. And this time I felt like it was more focusing on his fighting. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of fights here throughout this movie than the first one. I think they were more focusing on that.
Yeah, I think also it seemed like this one was more of, it was harder for, I'm thinking of the director trying to make the movie. So they try to make it harder for Sherlock. So it couldn't just be a thing he could think his way out of it. It was a thing he actually had to make his way out. I do agree with that. Yeah.
Because like you say, Moriarty was a very good opponent. He's smart. He's almost as good as Sherlock.
It's his perfect adversary kind of thing, thinking of every...
Because I wrote down a bit later on, when the bomb goes off, Sherlock had made a mistake about where the bomb was located. I thought it was in the opera. And Sherlock...
in the opera. And then he, when he climbs up into there and he looks out and he can see bloody... and he's looking at him. Moriarty's looking down at him.
And I've got so Sherlock never makes mistakes. So the fact that Moriarty made him make a mistake, just showing how good of an opponent, how formidable he is.
But to me, that isn't... The only mistake Sherlock made was reading the clues correctly.
Yes,
he read.
That's right.
There was no mistake there. He definitely was like, oh no, the clues take me to here, and he went there and he's like, oh no, he left the clues intentionally. Yeah, no,
and that whole scene just shows how formidable he is because because of the fact that he outsmarted him by intentionally making him think what he wanted him to think.
Yeah.
So well done.
And just to be there waiting with he's got his bloody binoculars at the opera and he's looking. I think that's bloody. It is
because he knew it was. It was so good.
Now let's go back. So he's at the
party.
Yep, stag do. Yep.
And I was thinking so early on. I'm like, he's not there because Sherlock's being a nice friend. He's there to help Sherlock.
No.
Sherlock
you can tell as well because he didn't invite any of his friends. He didn't do nothing. No. You know what I mean?
Just again showing how self-centered he is.
Yeah, and he's just going to try. He's trying to find Miss Sims or whatever it is.
Yeah, find the clues to the case and all that.
And so he meets her. How does he meet her? He goes in and he I like how he reads the cards for her. Like he's like, oh no, let me do you. And he reads them out and he puts them down and he explains them so bloody well. Like he knows his shit when it comes to tarot cards. Like and he's really convincing her.
Because she's like making slight corrections and like, no, not quite right. But.
And I like how when he goes to walk away and then he comes back and he quickly whispers in her ear, saying, warning her of the assassination, the assassin that's holding himself up on the wall or whatever.
And that's so funny when he does the whole. So now they finally do a slow motion where they explain stuff, but this time he gets cut off. So he goes.
So we see like a 1 minute breakdown or whatever, and he's going to do this, he's going to do that, he's going to break this arm, he's going to blah, blah, blah. And then when it comes time to actually execute that.
And then the gypsy woman just throws some knives at the bad guy.
I like that. She like throws like 3 or 4 fucking knives at him, right? And I thought that was so cool that Sherlock knew that wasn't the end. He had to they had to get out of there. But I also, one thing that kind of pulled me out of it, right? So this assassin, all right, he's tried to kill you, okay, all right. Yeah. Now you've knocked him unconscious. What you think, or you think you've put knives in his chest, all right?
I think he's dead. Yeah.
And you no, they don't. They don't think he's dead because they run away. They believe it, like they know that he's gonna get up. They don't have time. They need to get out. Either there's another opponent or he's not dead yet. That's what they believe. So why didn't they just pull one of those knives out and cut his fucking head off? Like, how could he didn't even check. Sherlock Holmes, the great and powerful, didn't check this body for a pulse. Like, that is so fucking weird. And the gypsy woman, she wouldn't care. She would carry out a killing. She'd stab that guy in the neck. Like, you know what I mean? This guy tried to assassinate you. Like,
so I think
all bets are off.
I think what happened there, though, is that Sherlock has never killed anyone.
No, but that's why I say she would have. Like, how did he not put his finger on his neck and go, you know what? He's still got a pulse. Let's fucking.
Yeah, but Sherlock doesn't want her to kill him because I don't think Sherlock likes killing people. So
that's bullshit.
So he's grabbed her.
He doesn't mind killing people by accident, like, you know, with a building falling down, but he'll happily let an assassin live.
But again, she thinks he's dead. Sherlock probably knows he's not dead. But I think she thought he was dead. Because she's not
maybe. I don't know. If someone's just tried to assassinate you and you don't think there's many others, you would definitely go to investigate the body.
There are a lot of movies where you see them, like, they knock the guy out and then they walk off. It's like, my fuck's sakes. You need to kill him. You need to make sure he's dead or tie him up.
It's like in Zombieland, you know how it's like rule number 1, double tap or whatever it is, or rule number 2, double tap. It's like, I think that's a perfect analogy for this, where it's like you should go back and don't fuck your bullets. Who cares if you've only got 3 left? Putting 2 in this guy's skull ensures that you're gonna survive. You know, like just do it. Just spare no expense.
Yeah, I kind of think that he just didn't want to kill anyone and he's against killing.
I do. He definitely doesn't. I know that. He's not for killing people and he's not for using guns and I definitely I can see that part of it. But like an assassin, that's different than not wanting to use a gun. He's come to kill you. He's like, I don't know.
And also they've now, the gypsy now, that woman has disrupted Sherlock's plan, so he doesn't have time to replan another way of killing him or finishing him off. Maybe I don't know, but no, you're right. Though.
Maybe not. Maybe that did stun him. He was all prepared to do his plan, and then all of a sudden it's wrong. He's like, let's just get out of here. I just found that a bit sus.
You're right. It could have been done a bit better.
Obviously, if they killed him, then obviously you wouldn't get the nice fight scene and like where he's dragging, because like the rope is connected to both of them, and you wouldn't have that fun fight scene that comes up immediately after. So
I'm thinking of now talking about on the train. Is that where?
Yes. Jump forward. Yeah. So quickly, the train is that's after the wedding. So I just want to say, at the wedding,
I wrote down something. Oh yeah, sorry, I did.
It is
past. Yeah,
because that's them on their way to the honeymoon. Now, just a quick little note. It's nothing big, but fuck, Jude Law is excellent at playing a drunk person / hungover person.
I thought so too.
Him climbing out of the bloody truck, out of the what do you call it, wagon, and like he's like struggling to stand, and it was immaculate. I couldn't have picked out better acting in my life. I loved it so much.
And the whole, like, because at the wedding thing, Sherlock's sort of like away. He's not there. You know what I mean? He's sort of in the background. And you've got this bittersweet. He's happy for Watson, but he's sad. The friendship's going to end.
You really like. You get to witness like a moment of Sherlock Holmes caring.
And they don't even say anything, and you can see, what's going on. You know, there's sorrow but happiness, and it was so extremely good acting and well written. And it was so well done. They showed things without having to tell you, and that's showing that it's a good done well when you can show it without words.
Especially, exactly, without words, without having them explain literally dot for like point for point what they're feeling, like being able to because we know the history up until this point of the movie. We know the history of Sherlock Holmes and Watson. We know from the end of the first movie, you know, they had that little grunt, you know, like we know how they are, and they continued that on, so we knew what they were feeling. It was well written. I agree with that completely.
And also, just after that scene, they did a bit with Moriarty, and I had a little note of, like, he seems like a good actor, like the perfect actor to play the role of Moriarty. Like, he makes you feel like you don't like him. But
I was just about to say, he's like got an evil side to him, and you're not sure what it is.
And you can tell he's intelligent, and it's so.
And I think the important part about, especially Sherlock Holmes, but also, God damn it, not Mycroft, God damn it, what's his fucking name? Who we're talking about? Moriarty is an M. Like they're very well spoken. You know, I mean, like they convey the words they really needed to. Like there was no like. I don't know, there was no drivel, there was no shit that was unnecessary. No. They were always straight to the point. They had the right words to say. I really did like Moriarty.
And throughout both movies, the actors they chose were very well thought out. Like they took months choosing their characters and actors.
Now, I mean, the only character I didn't think about too much is Mary. I didn't really think like nothing stood out as magnificent or grapple or any. Like, I don't really have any thoughts.
She's in it quite a lot, but like you say, she's not really into really important scenes either. So
well, I mean, she's important in the fact that she's Watson's partner.
Yeah, that whole dynamic.
But no, you're right. But like, whereas I thought like Rachel McAdams as Irene Adler, I was like, oh, she's good. Like they're like, you know, I had thoughts about her acting, but for some reason I'm sorry to the actress who played Watson's wife, Mary. I feel bad now. You did a good job, all right? Because to me, isn't that a good thing? Bad. It's like if there wasn't any notes about it, sometimes that's a good thing because, like, you know, even if some things are really good, you generally try to pick on something bad because you heard something good.
you don't want to be noticed for the wrong reasons. So So they're on the train and. It was so good that Robert Downey Jr. or Sherlock with the female makeup on. I thought that looked so good on him. He makes a good point.
And it's like, he looks like a good woman. I even like how he admits that it's not his best disguise. He's like, I admit it's not my best work, but I had to be here or whatever.
But he looks
I really like. Sorry.
He looks like I don't know, like a woman who'd be like the boss of like the whorehouse or something.
You're right, dude. You're spot on. I didn't think of that. I was literally just about to say, it looks like a woman who's a tranny.
That as well. But
No, you're right. You are right. I'm wrong. The fucking a woman who owns the brothel. Yes. Yeah.
And there's a bit there where his makeup, like his lipstick, gets smudged, and it reminded me of the Joker. And I'm like, he would make a good Joker. Robert Downey Jr.
That'd be interesting. See, I could see him more as like the Riddler kind of thing. Like,
yeah.
only because, like, you know, puzzles and, you know, you got to figure it out, and he's like smart. Like, I mean, not that the Joker's not smart, but like, no, anyway. No, I do see that. Like, he could play an evil bad guy very well.
I think he could do a good Joker, and maybe.
Imagine if they used him instead of that dickhead Jared Leto. Imagine that if they did that.
But like with the Heath Ledger, I think he compares.
No, leave Heath Ledger alone.
He could come in second.
Leave Britney alone.
He could come pretty close to that performance.
No, you're right.
I think, but we
obviously depending on how it's carried out and everything.
Yeah. And then also on the train when the Gatling gun goes off, and Watson looks down the train, but there's like, I don't know, 10 carriages, and he's aimed the gun like down all those holes. Down the
You'd have to be on a straight part of the track. You'd have to be. There's so many things.
But the CGI and all that looks so good. I thought that was.
It did. I love the part just prior to that where he's like, he just found out that Mary's not on the, or is it just after that maybe?
No,
where he found out. Where he found out Sherlock threw Mary off the train, and he's just screaming at him. He's like, "Did you kill my wife?" And they're like wrestling on the ground. "Did you kill my wife?" And he's like screaming at it, and all Sherlock says is like, "I timed it perfectly." And then the people come in with the guns and whatever. Like he didn't even say. He's like, "No, she's safe" or whatever. He does that a little bit after. I like how in that scene how they. Yeah, I timed it perfectly, but that doesn't mean anything. Did you kill her? Like, did you mean to time it out to kill her? I like how they give the setup on how Sherlock throughout the train ride, you know, beforehand he went to the, "Oh, sorry, ma'am, you're not allowed to use the restroom while we're in station," but he does anyway, and all like the breakdown of like how he shoved the lipstick there and like, you know, how he like blew the dust in the face of everyone so they couldn't see him while he's like, you know, taking the shell out of the round and putting the lipstick in place so that therefore later on it would give, you know, like it sets everything up. And I really,
and all that,
it's so cool because that's like one of those scenes where it's the slow-mo breakdown, but it's not Sherlock explaining the slow-mo breakdown. He's like just going through it and doing it. And I really like that.
Yeah, so roundabout with the train going on, they cut to Mary out in the water, and Mycroft picks her up, and she's he says,
what is he says?
He says, "I'm the other Holmes," and she's like, "You mean there's two of you? Marvelous!"
Yeah,
and she's like, "Can this evening get any better?"
Oh, that was a good scene. I like that. There's two of you. At least he's a much nicer.
And then on the train they're sort of arguing and stuff. I just love that dynamic, the bickering and the arguing, like they're an old married couple, Sherlock and Watson. So nice. I like it. It's like that's what good friends would be like, though. You would do that. Because you know each other so well, you just not afraid to make fun of each other, and it's so good. It's
right. So now then
they do another regroup, and then they make a plan and all that crap, like they always do.
One thing I just wanted to quickly say, the cool thing I saw was the where is it? Shit. Here. So the scene they're at the gypsy camp.
Yes.
I think that's coming up next anyway. So like, you know, Watson, all of their luggage gets taken away and then he punches the main strong guy and, you know, Sherlock looks at him like, "Ooh, I wouldn't have done that." Like, you know, because everyone starts revealing that they got knives and, you know, Miss Sims comes out of nowhere, like the gypsy lady, she comes out and like, "All right, come with us," and whatever. Now there's a part there where, like, you know how they get drunk and they start dancing. That whole dance scene of Jude Law dancing with
her,
I don't know the character's name,
yeah.
But it took 3 full days to get that 15-second scene or 30-second dancing scene. 3 whole days. That just goes to show how much we're not privy to watching the movie, how much time, effort, thought, you know, how many mistakes that had to get left on the cutting floor. Like, there's just so much.
But not just that, how much they cut out, or see, they may think they're going to use certain bits, and then later on they go, no, it doesn't fit, so we need to make it 5 minutes instead of half hour. And there's so much that we don't get to see that goes on. You see a movie and you just don't realize how much work goes into it.
And that's why I feel like it's quite disheartening to see people praise the actors alone.
Yeah.
Like, no, but they're the last fucking thing. They are the last thing.
And you can tell,
maybe not like editors, but
there are certain movies you can have a fantastic actor, but without a good director, they don't really show any emotion. They don't. It's not great. Like,
now, I'm not saying like actors are unnecessary, but I think they all need to be great. Everything needs to be great. It can't just be like, oh, let's get Robert Downey Jr. and a shitty director and hope it works well. It's like no, they need to get a good one, a good actor. They need a good screenwriters. They need and I thought that was cool.
I'm starting to notice, particularly with emotion and stuff, that the director can get a lot more out of the actors than they know they can do themselves. Like, a good director.
Well, it's up to the director to go, nah, redo it again, but now think about your mum dying. Go.
Like, if you just do one take, go, yeah, that's good. They're not really warmed up. They haven't got the emotion. You need to do like 10 takes. You need to go. And even if you don't think it's right, do a couple more. Yeah. So much work goes in. Not just that, but special effects. Any of the people.
No. All right, so they so now they've made the plan to try and get over to the anarchist. What do they call that? What would they call that? Like it's almost an army. It looks like, but I don't know what they call it. But anyway, they're going to they're breaking in the barracks. That's probably the best word for it.
That's probably the right word. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know what you meant, so I think that's the right word. So I like on the way there how Sherlock gets the bloody donkey, the little bloody show pony. That's funny.
So funny. That's so good. Yeah.
Now there's a scene there. While it might be a bit as they're about to leave the barracks or whatever, but there's a slow-mo firing of that massive cannon.
Oh yes.
That just looks immaculate, doesn't it? It looks so cool. You see like the shell getting loaded in, and then the firing pin just tapping it, and then the embers of the explosion. It was so cool. It was so cool.
So sort of at this point, I felt like I was enjoying the movie more than the first one.
Okay.
But like, I think maybe because they didn't need to like set up the characters. You already knew the characters. So you didn't need all that background.
They could almost just jump straight into the story because they've set it up in the first one.
Yeah, less intro, more into the action. I did feel like the ending dragged on a bit, but like not dragged on, but I feel like the movie, like the other week, was a tiny bit too long. Could have been shorter, but I don't know what you would have got rid of.
Yeah. I think those are just nitpicky things, aren't they? Like, we can always find those things that we wish we could change, but like, even if you don't know if you did change them things, that the movie would have turned out worse. Like, you're not sure.
Yeah, like maybe they could have, because there's 2 times. There's one time when they get together and make a plan, doesn't quite work, and then they get together and make a second plan. Maybe they didn't need to do that twice.
Yeah,
possibly that could have been. Yeah, so my next note is pretty much at the end scenes. So do you have any?
Well, I just got a quick little, obviously we just talked about we talked earlier about, you know, I love when the camera is like invisibly attached to the person's movement, you know, those types of things there. That's just super fun. And I just wanted to bring it up again because like, obviously, like, because we're up to that part of the movie, but I'm thinking, like, you know, even when they're like hopping on the train and everything, and you're like, it just, I'm in a moment of awe right now just thinking about it, how bloody awesome it is when, I don't know what it does to you as a perspective, like you're an outside perspective, when you're like following the movement. It's like you're, you know, like there was one, what movie was it? I can't remember, like a battalion of men were like marching out to war, and the camera is going with the left, left, right, and it's like you're preparing to march out onto the battlefield, like you're getting amped up for it. And I really like how much it draws you in when they do things like that. So yeah, I just thought I'd bring that up again. But yeah, so what do we got now? They're on the train. I know you got the ending scene, but I just thought here's a stereotypical pounding on the chest CPR because the character loves the other character. I wrote equals cringy as fuck. I hated it. I hated that part of the fucking movie. Anyway, sorry, let's go.
I didn't notice that much because I was too busy thinking about use the fucking adrenal extract.
Yeah, you already knew. You already knew. Yeah. No, but I'm like there and he's like pounding and he's getting more emotional. Jude Law is like, fuck it. And he pounds his chest and I'm like, ugh, skip. Why did this not get left on the bloody cutting room floor? Fuck me. Yeah. Anyway. But then, obviously Sherlock thought ahead with the bloody adrenal, like the little vial, his wedding present.
Yeah. I didn't know that was going to happen, but yeah.
No, I think just in case. That was like his backup plan.
That's what he does. He gives people things and takes things just in case.
In case.
So I just noticed something I wrote down. I just want to go back for a sec. So on the train, when Sherlock shoves her off the train, right there.
When Mary,
Yeah, so Sherlock says to her, he's like, do you trust me? And she's like, no. And he's like, well, I guess we're going to have to do something about that. And then pushes her out the train. And that's when,
how are you meant to trust him at that? Imagine that for her, just from her perspective, the fall down, you're not sure if there's water underneath you, you're not sure anything, all right? And you've just been told to trust him. You'd want to kill him.
And then that's when after they fight about, you killed my wife and all that. He's like, I told you perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so and then we're at the end now.
So they're at the what is it? The Peace Summit. That's right.
Yeah, so they're at that summit, and that scene is so like good with them playing chess.
I was just about to say, because when you said before how it was the ending, it seemed a bit long of a movie, and I kind of thought you meant the ending was, but it's not. And I see where you're coming from now, but. Like I thought the ending was so well done, like the timing of it all, and Jude Law inside with the gypsy woman Naomi something that was
they're trying to find the other guy,
and they're like picking it out and prodding. But while they're doing that, so's Sherlock and Moriarty. They're having their own little battle of wits outside as well, and it was so. And you're like following two little bits of the two threads of the storyline, and it was awesome. Sorry.
No, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say about and I'm like, I'm thinking of the chest and like where Moriarty comes out and he grabs the cloak and drapes it over Sherlock. I just had this weird like, oh God, is that how he kills Sherlock? Like I'd forgotten the ending of the movie. I'm like, no. He just draped this thing over it. I'm like, it's probably got that fucking tuberculosis shit in it. Like,
and I was sort of thinking like, I know, like they said before, they mentioned that Moriarty was a professional boxer. So like, obviously they're going to fight or there's going to be something there. I was thinking, but Sherlock's injured. And all this stuff, I'm like, what are they going to do? And
then you got like Sherlock doing his breakdown, and then you got Moriarty interrupting his breakdown, even though it hasn't happened. It's not in reality. It's a separate thought. It's a thought experiment, but he's now joined his thought experiment. It was so weird.
Yeah, so just before that, like when they're playing chess, and he makes a move, and so they actually stop playing it on the chessboard. And they're saying it out loud. So they're saying the chess moves. And so Sherlock would say some moves, the chess moves, and then he would start explaining like how he did certain things, and then Moriarty would make a move and he would explain his plans and back and forth, and it was so good. Like they're still competing with each other.
And he's like, yeah, no, the competition, you're right. And it's like how Sherlock's like says about his red book, he first noticed it. And then that's where he like touches his pocket to make sure he's still got it. And then a bit later on, he pulls it out and he notices that it's empty because he did swap it over, because earlier in the movie where, you know, Moriarty had him on like that meat hook or whatever it was, he was close enough to grab it and swap it over. You know, it was excellent. Yeah. Yeah. And that's where and now while watching that end scene, did you think back to earlier in the movie where he held Mycroft's personal oxygen supply? Did you think back on that?
Forgot all about
you
that.
Did forget? No, okay. I was waiting for it, I'll be honest. I'm like, all right, here we go. Here we go. How is he going to use it? Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, and then when they start to do a fight, but it's just all in their minds. Like you were saying, they're like fighting each other like, oh, if I do this move and that move, and then he'll do this. And so there was never a fight.
Essentially what they were doing with the chess. Essentially, but now it's the real thing.
And and that was so good. And they don't even have to fight by the end of it, because Sherlock decides that the only option is they both lose.
Yeah.
Or do they?
Yeah,
and then he grabs him and jumps over the edge, and it's like, oh, well, of course, that's the only way to do it. You've got to sacrifice yourself.
Yeah.
But he's not going to expect that. It's the last thing he would think. That's the only reason.
No, you're right. And because he's obviously expecting that Sherlock would be as selfish as he is. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way you would, sacrifice. There's no way.
Yeah, because Moriarty's outlook is he's selfish and he just wants, just very selfish. And Sherlock is starting to become more not so selfish. He actually does care about people. So they both go to the edge, and when they're falling down, I'm like, and Sherlock like pushes off of Moriarty, like at the right point. And I'm like, yeah, with the perfect timing again, like with the train.
Well, I was also thinking, I'm like, how did they not hit like a cliff on the way down, or it's like all those things. So that kind of adds to the plausibility, because he pushed himself away from Moriarty, therefore away from the cliffside, so he's more likely to get into deep water, less likely to hurt himself.
Yeah.
Like maybe there was some thought into or it was just like movie magic.
Because I mean, the idea of Sherlock is that he stays calm when he thinks about this. He doesn't get flustered. He's always calm and slowly and thinking and calculated.
I was about to say it's cool, calm, and collected. He's completely there.
It might not be on the inside, but on the outside, it probably is on the inside too, because he's trying to think of the way out and how to fix it, and constantly, And then we're right at the end now. You got anything else?
Yeah, no, right at the end.
So it's so good.
Well, no, you go.
I was just going to say, so you got Watson sitting there typing. And then
because it's essentially a flashback to the start of the movie is what it feels like. Like it's
so it's still
a little
intro,
tip of the hat.
Still that bit at the start. And then he types the end, right? And it stops there. And then his wife walks in with the box. And that's when you find out he opens the box and it's the rebreather. And then he's like, oh, Mary, who sent this box? And then he goes out after her. And the whole time, Sherlock was sitting in the chair.
I was about to say, it's a flashback that connects to earlier in the movie where Watson comes in the room and can't see him because of like all the trees everywhere, and he's like looking for him and he can't spot him. But it turns out he was like right near him, just in a perfectly painted onesie.
And then he walks over to the desk and he puts a question mark on the end.
A question mark. What a nice ending, isn't it?
That's a good way to hint to a second. That's the way to do it, because it's like, question mark?
Yeah, question mark? Because the good thing with a question mark, it can also be no. You know what I mean? So
that's right, exactly.
Is there? Like, it probably not. You don't know. Yeah. Alrighty, so I'll just jump into my overall notes, I think.
Yeah, go for it.
Now, I think... so this is hard because I liked the first one better. I feel like just a little bit better. I rated them the same. I'll tell you that afterwards. But I feel like it was just a little bit better. But the action sequences and stuff I liked way more in the second one. I think I felt like maybe it's because they got that slow-mo guy involved, you know, or maybe they knew because they had so much success with the first one, let's go all out in the second one. I'm not sure as to why. It felt, it felt very good.
It was a way bigger budget. It was, well, not way bigger. It was 125 million. So
coming from, what was that, 90 from the other one?
Yeah, that's an extra 35 million.
Million. Fuck.
So all that extra money to make it better.
Yeah. Wow. It helped, all right? It fucking helped.
And they made, while we're on that budget topic, they made 545 million, so...
so that's essentially they made the same amount as their first one.
Yeah, sort of.
But they put a bit more money in it.
Yeah. So...
now the only... Obviously, I said earlier... this is a bit of a downfall, but it leads into like amazing. So I found some of the dialogue, as I said, a bit cringy. A couple of moments, you know, like pounding the chest, like, ugh. But in saying that, the rest of the movie, which is 99% of the movie, I found completely witty, funny. Like it was on point. It was hysterical, and like the words that were said were amazing. But I think just a couple moments pulled me out of it, and it kind of made me a bit judgmental about the rest. So I admit that for sure. But I think most of it was you know, the banter between them two as a duo, like everything just works so fucking well together. And I'll just give my ratings now. I put the first one on the higher end of an 8 out of 10 and the second one on the lower end of an 8 out of a 10. I don't want to do halves. I can't be fucking bothered with that shit. So I reckon they're both 8s. One is a little bit better in my opinion, just a smidgen of a fraction. Now that I think that's just the first one. I don't know if that's because it was like the first of the series. I don't know. I think there was less moments of bullshit in my feelings on that one.
So, yeah, like you say, I was so stuck between like an 8 or a 9 in my ratings. Actually, I'll just do my overview before I do my rating. So, again, same as the first one, like the camera and the colour and the sets and the showing that really old... dirty London. That was so
gritty, grimy.
Grimy. I love that feel. I love these old London movies. They're so good. And again, the acting is great between all the actors. But the music I thought was even better in this one, because there was like a couple of moments there where I was like tapping my feet along to the music, and it's like, oh, it's so good. I just love that music. I don't know. I guess it reminded me a lot of TV show I watched called Black Sails. It's all about pirates.
Called what, sorry?
Black Sails.
Oh, okay.
All about pirates back in that kind of era, back in the 1800s, dirty London sort of feel. I had that same sort of music, and I loved it there too. Just, I don't know, that sort of music so good. And like what I said earlier, the whole movie, it was good. The pacing and everything was good. The movie just felt a bit too long. Like, what was it, 2 hours and something?
It was.
Felt a bit long. I don't know. Like,
that seems to be a common thing you've got over the past few movies we've watched, haven't you?
Some that are okay. Like, Shaun of the Dead I thought was fine. But yeah, just because I watch like Marvel stuff and I don't mind it being longer. But some shows, movies, it's like, I don't know. I just felt like didn't need to be quite that long.
No, that's fair. Yeah.
And so, yeah, like I was saying before, I struggled between 8 and a 9. Like you said, I thought number 1 was slightly higher rated than the second one. But I gave them both a 9. So
no. Well, that's essentially what I did. I gave them both an 8, but I wanted to let the audience know one's a little bit like just a bee's dick better.
So I kind of just. Yeah, I like them both so much.
Now, I just got a quick question for you. Now, comparing the two movies against each other for, let's go CGI alone, which one did you prefer?
I guess because
I think we're going to answer the same. Maybe. I think the second one.
Yeah, because I noticed the things like on top of the bridge, it looked a bit. You could tell it was.
Yes.
green screen, and the second one.
Well, what about even the scene, like, you know, them hanging off the side of a train? There's no fucking way they were actually hanging off the side of a train. And it's like, but you didn't even notice.
That's right. Like, so they've probably got bigger budget and a couple more years of technology. Probably helped them out a lot.
Man. And the bigger budget obviously helps them acquire more people with more experience. So, yeah, absolutely.
And planning things like, maybe don't put them on a 20-story bridge.
Yeah, yeah. Keep them on the ground as much as possible.
Yeah. So things like that. Second one had less noticeable mistakes.
Issues. And that just could be because it's newer as well. So, yeah. No, that's easy. I just thought I'd ask that. That was just something I wanted to ask.
I gave both 1 and 2 a 9 out of 10 because I like them.
And I gave them both an 8 out of 10. Oh, I love them both. They're so bloody excellent.
Yeah.
I mean, not to dwell on the past, but like just the few moments of cringy is really the only moments that pulled those scores down, I think.
Yeah, but that's just nitpicky. Yeah.
But I think that's personal as well. That's, it's so many things. So obviously you didn't find them like that, but I did. So it's definitely personal.
Yeah, which is fine. And they can't make a movie good for everyone.
No.
There've been people out there that totally hate the whole thing.
Fuck off, anyway.
And if you do, and you have any good things to tell us about it, get in contact.
Oh, please do. We'd love that.
Up on the show.
And on that note, bloody good talking to you again, Stephen. I would love it for you audience out there if you could, you know, maybe give us a follow on our Facebook page. We've got Instagram, Twitter. You could maybe give us a listen, even rate and review on iTunes. That'd help us out a lot, I think. Any last notes there, Stephen? Anything else?
Just that if you look for us, it would probably be better off searching Macrocosm Cast.
Yeah, Macrocosm Cast. Yeah, that's like, chuck that in Google and it'll come up whether you find our Anchor website or you find, the Facebook page, which then has all the links necessary.
Yeah, so any one of those places and you'll, good.
Yeah. All righty, good talking to you again, Stephen.
You too. Good luck next week.
Bye.
See you guys.